The coffee cup slipped from Kara's trembling fingers, shattering against the kitchen floor as she watched her husband of 7 years rush past her like she was invisible furniture. No kiss, no good morning, not even a glance. Just the slam of the front door and the echo of footsteps disappearing into another day where she didn't matter. Standing in the wreckage of porcelain and spilled dreams, Kara felt the familiar ache in her chest, the one that had been growing stronger each morning for the past 2 years. At 29, she had everything she thought she wanted: a beautiful home, healthy children, and a successful husband. So why did she feel like she was dying inside? The house felt enormous and suffocating at the same time. Upstairs, she could hear their 5-year-old daughter Emma calling for breakfast, while 3-year-old Noah was already having a meltdown about his missing toy truck. Another day of being everything to everyone except the one person who used to see her as his whole world. Lucas hadn't always been this way. There was a time when he would wake up early just to watch her sleep, when he would leave little notes in her coffee cup, when he would call her in the middle of his workday just to hear her voice. Now, she couldn't remember the last time he had really looked at her. Not the quick glance to see if dinner was ready, but the deep, loving gaze that used to make her feel like she was the most beautiful woman alive. As she swept up the broken pieces, Kara caught her reflection in the kitchen window. When had she started looking so tired? When had the light in her eyes begun to fade? The woman staring back at her looked like a stranger, worn down, forgotten, disappearing a little more each day. The cruel irony wasn't lost on her. Lucas was working so hard to build their future that he was destroying their present. Every late night at the office, every missed dinner, every forgotten conversation was another crack in the foundation of what they once had. And the worst part, he didn't even notice the house was falling down around them. By noon, Kara had already lived 3 lifetimes. She had negotiated a peace treaty between Emma and Noah over the last waffle, rescued the cat from Noah's overly enthusiastic hugs, and somehow managed to get both children dressed and fed despite feeling like she was moving underwater. The silence in the house was deafening once she dropped Emma at kindergarten and Noah went down for his nap. This was supposed to be her time, the precious 2 hours when she could breathe, maybe take a shower, or simply sit in silence. Instead, she found herself standing in the living room, surrounded by the evidence of her invisible labor: folded laundry, cleaned surfaces, organized toys. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through Lucas's social media. There he was, smiling at a company lunch with colleagues she'd never met, looking happier than she'd seen him in months. The caption read, "Building dreams with an amazing team." The irony cut deep. He was building dreams everywhere except at home. Kara tried calling him, knowing he wouldn't answer. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. His voice, warm and professional, promised to return calls promptly. She almost laughed at the bitter joke. He returned everyone's calls promptly, except hers. The house felt like a museum of their former happiness. Wedding photos smiled down from the mantel, showing 2 people who looked like strangers now. In those pictures, Lucas looked at her like she hung the moon. Now, he barely looked up from his laptop when she spoke. She found herself walking through their home like a ghost, touching surfaces they used to share. The kitchen island where they used to cook together was now her solitary workspace. The living room couch where they once cuddled during movies was now where she folded endless loads of laundry while he worked upstairs. Even their bedroom felt more like a hotel room where 2 strangers happened to sleep. The betrayal wasn't dramatic. There was no other woman, no smoking gun, no moment of shocking discovery. The betrayal was quieter, and somehow more devastating. It was the betrayal of being forgotten by the one person who promised never to forget her. It was the betrayal of being taken for granted by the man who once fought to win her heart. By the time Noah woke from his nap, Kara had made a decision that terrified her. She couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change, even if it broke everything they'd built. Kara found herself trapped in memories as she prepared dinner that evening. The rhythmic chopping of vegetables became a meditation on everything they'd lost. She remembered when Lucas used to come home early just to cook with her, when they would dance in this very kitchen while marinara sauce bubbled on the stove. Those early days felt like a dream now. Lucas used to leave her little notes in her textbooks during college. "You're going to change the world," one had said, "but you've already changed mine." He would drive 2 hours just to take her to dinner at a hole-in-the-wall restaurant they couldn't afford. Money didn't matter then, only moments did. Their first apartment was tiny and perfect. They had a futon that doubled as a couch, mismatched dishes, and dreams bigger than their space could hold. Lucas would work his part-time job during the day and spend his evenings building his first startup idea on an ancient laptop while Kara studied for her teaching degree. Even exhausted, he would always make time for her. They would fall asleep talking about their future, their voices growing softer until sleep claimed them mid-sentence. When Lucas's first company sold for 6 figures, they celebrated with champagne in plastic cups and pizza from their favorite place. This is just the beginning, he had promised, spinning her around their small kitchen. We're going to build something amazing together. The key word was together. Now at 31, Lucas had everything he dreamed of: the successful company, the beautiful house, the respect of his peers. But somewhere along the way, together had become apart. Success had been the slow poison that killed their connection, one missed dinner at a time. Kara set the table for 4, knowing only 3 plates would be used. Lucas's chair had become a ghost at their dinner table, present but empty. She could predict his text. Running late, eat without me, love you. The words love you had become as automatic and meaningless as breathing. The children had stopped asking when Daddy would be home. Emma, wise beyond her 5 years, had learned to save her best stories for breakfast, when she might catch him before he disappeared again. Noah still ran to the window each evening, pressing his small hands against the glass, waiting for headlights that came later and later each night. As darkness fell over their neighborhood, Kara watched other families through lit windows. Fathers helping with homework, couples cooking together, families gathered around dinner tables. She felt like an outsider looking in at the life she used to have, the life she desperately wanted back. October 15th. 7 years ago on this exact date, Lucas had promised to love her in sickness and health, for richer or poor, for better or worse. Kara had spent 3 days planning the perfect anniversary surprise. She'd arranged for her mother to watch the children, bought Lucas's favorite wine, and spent hours preparing the meal they'd shared on their first date. The candles were lit at 6 o'clock. The table looked like something from a magazine. White roses he'd given her on their wedding day, recreated from memory, the good china they never used, and 2 glasses of wine waiting to toast another year of marriage. 6:30 came and went, then 7, then 8. Kara's phone buzzed with a text. Big client meeting running over. Start without me. Sorry, babe. Sorry, babe. 2 words that summed up the last 2 years of their marriage. Sorry for missing dinner. Sorry for working late. Sorry for forgetting to call. Sorry for not being the husband you married. She sat alone at the romantic table she'd spent all day preparing, watching the candles burn lower and lower. The wine grew warm. The food grew cold. Her heart grew harder with each passing minute. At 9:15, she heard the garage door. Lucas walked in, tie loosened, looking exhausted, and stopped short when he saw the elaborate dinner setup. "Oh no," he whispered, and something in Kara's chest finally snapped. "Oh no?" she repeated, her voice barely controlled. "That's it? Oh no?" Lucas looked around the room as if seeing it for the first time. The roses, the candles, the untouched dinner. His wife's tear-stained face. His eyes widened with the realization of what day it was. "Kara, I'm so sorry. The Johnson account." "Stop!" Her voice cut through his excuse like a blade. "Just stop talking about work for 1 minute. 1 minute, Lucas. Can you do that for your wife?" He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it, perhaps finally hearing the pain in her voice. "Do you know what I did today? I dropped our children off at my mother's house. I spent $40 on roses because I remembered you gave me white roses on our wedding day. I cooked for 4 hours. I put on the dress you said was your favorite. I lit candles and opened wine and set a table for 2 people who used to be in love." Her voice cracked on the last words. "I sat here for 3 hours, Lucas. 3 hours, watching the candles burn down, making excuses for you to myself. And you know what the worst part is? I wasn't even surprised. I expected you to forget. I planned for you to disappoint me. What does that say about us?" The silence stretched between them like a chasm neither knew how to cross. Thunder rolled across the sky as if nature itself was responding to the storm brewing in their dining room. Rain began pelting the windows, and Kara felt like the weather was finally matching her inner turmoil. "I thought I was doing this for us," Lucas said quietly, his voice barely audible above the storm. "Everything I do is for this family." "No," Kara shook her head, tears flowing freely now. "Everything you do is for your idea of this family, for some future version of us that you've convinced yourself needs your 60-hour work weeks and your constant absence." She moved closer to him. And for the first time in months, he didn't reach for his phone or glance at his watch. When did you last ask me how I'm doing, Lucas? Really ask and wait for an answer that isn't fine. When did you last notice that Emma learned to ride her bike or that Noah says your name in his sleep because he misses you so much? Lucas's face crumpled. I didn't know, Noah. Of course you didn't know. The words came out harder than she intended. You don't know anything about us anymore. You live here, but you're not here. You share our bed, but you're already gone before I wake up. You eat the food I cook, but you don't taste it because you're thinking about tomorrow's meeting. Lightning illuminated the room, and for a split second, Kara saw her husband clearly. Really saw him. He looked lost, like a man who had been running so fast toward his goals that he'd forgotten to look back and see who he'd left behind. I feel like I'm married to a ghost, she whispered, and I'm becoming one too. I'm disappearing, Lucas, a little more every day, and you don't even notice. The rain was coming down harder now, matching the intensity of 7 years of unspoken pain finally breaking free. I love you, Lucas said desperately. You know I love you. Do I? Kara's voice broke. When did you last show me? When did you last choose me over a conference call? When did you last touch me like you meant it, not like checking an item off your to-do list? Lucas opened his mouth, but no words came. In that silence, both of them heard the answer to every question she'd asked. I can't keep being invisible in my own life, Kara said, her voice gaining strength. I won't keep being the wife who's grateful for scraps of your attention. I deserve better than that. Our children deserve better than that. And somewhere deep down, you deserve better than being a stranger in your own home. The truth hung in the air between them, as clear and shocking as the lightning outside. Lucas sat in his car outside their house for 20 minutes after the confrontation, rain drumming on the roof like bullets. He couldn't bring himself to go back inside and face what he'd done or what he'd failed to do. For the first time in years, he turned off his phone completely. No emails, no calls, no urgent meetings that suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the devastation in his wife's eyes. He thought about Noah saying his name in his sleep. When had he last tucked his son in? When had he last read Emma a bedtime story? He could remember every detail of his latest business proposal, but he couldn't remember the last time he had a real conversation with his daughter. The rain began to slow, and Lucas found himself walking through their neighborhood instead of going inside. He passed the Jenkins family through their living room window, Dad helping with homework while Mom folded laundry, both of them talking and laughing with their kids. Such a simple scene, but it looked like paradise to him now. At the corner coffee shop where he used to take Kara on Saturday mornings, he sat at their old table and finally let himself feel the weight of what he'd lost. The barista, a college girl with bright eyes, reminded him of Kara when they first met, full of life, full of dreams, full of love for him. Where had that woman gone? And worse, had he been the one to kill her spirit? His phone vibrated insistently in his pocket, but for the first time in 2 years, he ignored it. Instead, he pulled out a pen and began writing on a napkin, something he hadn't done since college. Dear Kara, he wrote, then stopped. What could he possibly say that would undo 2 years of neglect? The truth was, he had convinced himself that providing for his family was the same as loving them. He had confused success with significance, money with meaning. He had been so busy building their financial future that he destroyed their emotional present. Walking home as the storm cleared, Lucas made a decision that would have seemed impossible that morning. Success without his family wasn't success at all. It was failure dressed in expensive clothes. As he approached their front door, he saw Kara through the window, cleaning up the anniversary dinner alone. She moved like a woman who had given up hope, and the sight nearly brought him to his knees. He had a choice to make: keep running toward a finish line that didn't matter, or turn around and fight for the only victory that did. The next morning, Kara woke to find a handwritten note on her pillow. I see you. I'm sorry it took me so long to remember how to look. L. It was the first note he'd written her in 4 years. Lucas was already downstairs making breakfast, not just coffee and toast, but real breakfast. Pancakes shaped like hearts for Emma, scrambled eggs cut into dinosaurs for Noah. He looked up when she entered, and for the first time in months, he really saw her. Hi, he said simply. Hi, she replied, not sure what else to say. Over the next few weeks, Lucas began the slow work of rebuilding what he'd torn down. He moved his home office hours to after the children's bedtime. He instituted phone-free dinners where the only technology allowed was the microwave timer. He started taking Emma to school every morning using the 15-minute drive to hear about her dreams from the night before. But it wasn't easy. Old habits died hard. Lucas's business partner called him irresponsible. Clients complained about his new boundaries. His income took a hit when he turned down a lucrative contract that would have required 3 months of travel. The first time he chose family dinner over a networking event, Kara cried, not because she was sad, but because she had forgotten what it felt like to be chosen. Lucas began noticing things he'd been blind to for years. How Kara's face lit up when he complimented her cooking, how Emma saved her best artwork to show him, how Noah's whole body relaxed when Lucas read him bedtime stories in different voices. He started leaving small gifts, not expensive ones, but meaningful ones. A single flower from their garden on her bathroom mirror. A text in the middle of the day that said nothing more than, "Thinking of you." A back rub without being asked. Slowly, carefully, like trust returning to a wounded animal, Kara began to believe again. She started wearing the dresses he loved. She began sharing her thoughts instead of just her schedule. She let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. The children noticed first. Emma started talking about the old daddy coming back. Noah began sleeping through the night again. The house itself seemed lighter, as if happiness was returning one small gesture at a time.
6 months later, Kara and Lucas stood in the same kitchen where their marriage had almost died, but everything was different now. The morning light seemed brighter, the air felt lighter, even their coffee tasted better when shared instead of rushed. "Do you remember," Lucas said, wrapping his arms around her from behind as she packed the children's lunches, "when we used to dream about having a life like this?" Kara leaned back against his chest, a gesture that would have felt foreign just months before. "I remember dreaming about having you present for a life like this." They had learned that love wasn't something you felt, it was something you did. Every morning, Lucas chose to wake up 15 minutes early to have coffee with Kara. Every evening, he chose to close his laptop and ask about her day. Every weekend, he chose family adventures over business opportunities. The changes weren't dramatic. There were no grand gestures or expensive gifts. Instead, there were 1,000 small resurrections. Lucas learning to braid Emma's hair for school, taking Noah to the park every Saturday morning, holding Kara's hand during their evening walks around the neighborhood. Lucas's business partner had warned him that his new boundaries would hurt his career. Instead, his creativity soared. His decision-making improved. His team respected him more. It turned out that a man with a happy home was a better leader than a man with everything to prove. On a quiet Sunday evening, as the children played in the living room and dinner dishes soaked in the sink, Lucas and Kara found themselves slow dancing to no music in their kitchen. It was the same kitchen where Kara had felt invisible, where Lucas had rushed past her like a stranger. Now it felt sacred. "I want to make you a promise," Lucas whispered against her ear. "Not for our future, but for tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day after that." "What promise?" Kara asked, though her heart already knew. "I promise to see you, every day. Not the mom, not the wife, not the woman who keeps our house running. I promise to see Kara, the woman I fell in love with, the woman who's still here waiting for me to remember how to look." They didn't need a ceremony or an audience. Their real wedding vows weren't spoken 7 years ago in front of 200 people. They were whispered in a kitchen at sunset, surrounded by the beautiful chaos of the life they'd almost lost. That night, as they lay in bed talking until sleep claimed them, just like they used to, Kara realized something profound. Love wasn't something you found once and kept forever. Love was something you chose again and again in 1,000 small moments. It was showing up when it was inconvenient. It was paying attention when you were tired. It was choosing each other over everything else that demanded your time. Their marriage had been broken, but it wasn't beyond repair. Like the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is mended with gold, their relationship was now stronger and more beautiful because of where it cracked. The scars of their near failure had become the golden threads that held them together. Love, they learned, wasn't just about the vows you make on your wedding day. It was about the choice you make every morning to honor those vows with your actions, your attention, and your heart.